Hello everyone, and welcome to this insightful interview. Today we are honored to have His Excellent Peter Taksøe-Jensen, the Ambassador of Denmark to Japan, joining us. He is here to provide his valuable insights into the collaborative efforts between Denmark and Japan in the offshore wind energy sector, a partnership of immense significance for addressing energy and climate challenges. Without further ado, let's begin this exciting conversation. Welcome, Ambassador Peter.
Thank you.
Yeah, and first of all, how does Denmark's collaboration with Japan in offshore wind energy align with Denmark's expertise and the strategic goals in this field? And how does it support Japan's energy and climate ambitions?
When I came to Japan 4 years ago, I thought that we should have an energy partnership with Japan. Denmark at the time had energy partnerships with many countries around the world. The purpose being to provide a channel where we can share some of the expertise and knowledge that we have acquired over a long journey from being dependent on fossil fuels back in the 70s to a situation now where we are moving towards having only renewable energy in our electricity system. So we have something to offer. We were the first country in the world to start offshore wind. We did that back in 1991. And we have done a lot of development in this area. We have companies who have been developing new technologies and so forth. So also in this area we have things to offer. But the collaboration we wanted to have was one between the governments, one between the Danish Energy Agency and the Embassy here in Japan, to try to see how we could support or help accelerate some of the transition that Japan needs to make. We all know that former Prime Minister Suga, when he was in office, announced that Japan should be net zero by 2050 and lower emissions to 46% of 2013 targets by 2030. So there's a need to really accelerate things in a situation where Japan has been dependent for a long time on fossil fuels, coal, gas, but also nuclear. So what have we done? We have done an MOU, a memorandum of cooperation with Japan, where we identify what are the key areas we want to collaborate on. And one is offshore wind. The other one is how do you actually integrate renewable energy into your grid system and how do you prepare the grid system to go forward. And now we're also going to enlarge our collaboration to encompass also green hydrogen, which is a direction we're moving in Denmark, and we can see the same direction here in Japan.
Yeah, thank you. And given Denmark's significant success in integrating wind power and its robust regulatory framework, can you elaborate on the specific expertise or guidance that Denmark can offer to support Japan in strengthening its offshore wind energy initiatives?
We have long experience in the regulatory framework to set up tenders and so forth. Till now, the tenders we've seen going forward for offshore wind in Japan has been in the territorial waters, basically focusing on areas where you can have bottom-fixed tenders. And here we have shared how we have done these tenders to help Japan avoid some of the mistakes we have done in the past. Next step for Japan, and we've talked a lot with the Japanese authorities about this, is to open up the economic zone, which is huge. I think the 6th largest in the world for Japan. So we have a big potential for offshore wind. But it's not just you open it up and then that's what you do. You need to set up a framework to ensure that all the stakeholders are taken into account. We have a lot of knowledge on how you do this, so we share how we have ensured that all stakeholders will be around the table. We also have a lot of experience on how you do maritime spatial planning, how do you prepare the different areas that you want to use for offshore wind harvesting for this purpose. And so therefore these are areas that we want to share with Japan. And then some of the things where we have had benefits is to create a situation where we could say, have a one-stop shop where people can go. This is our energy agency. We think this experience is something that could also be very useful to copy-paste from Japan. So we have some things that we have shared, and we hope that that can be useful in that sentence as well.
Yeah, thanks. And Japan has set ambitious targets for offshore wind energy deployment. From Denmark's perspective, how do these targets not only promote renewable energy generation, but also enhance Japan's energy security and resilience against the global energy market fluctuations?
I start with a point which I found a little bit surprising when I came to Japan, that Japan continues to import about 90% of energy from abroad. And of course, that is a lot. Part of it is, the reason for part of it is, of course, that there was this accident in Fukushima where nuclear power had to be taken off the grid for some time, but still is a very high number. And that means that Japan is very vulnerable to energy crisis, where prices on energy or commodities go up. And this is really where we see a potential for offshore wind. I mean, there's only so much space in Japan to put up solar and onshore wind because it's a mountain country and so forth. So therefore, the real potential to move into renewables and get out of this dependency on importing fossil fuels or other fuels from abroad is really offshore wind. And this is why we have focused on this potential. Japan set an ambitious goal of getting to 10 gigawatts of offshore by 2030. I think, being a little bit optimistic that Japan is on track, we see tenders going forward. From an industry point of view, you could wish that there was a little bit more speed on this, say, tender process that is going forward. But I think it will move in a direction where soon, maybe a little bit after 2030, you will have 10 gigawatts of offshore wind. Then the next target is 30 to 45 gigawatts by 2040. I think that is a very low target. I mean, that's not really harvesting the potential that Japan has. I think international organizations are looking at the potential for offshore wind in Japan and saying it's maybe the potential is about 450 gigawatts or 500 gigawatts of offshore wind. This, of course, is mostly in the extended economic zone where you have to develop and be sure that you can use floating offshore wind because it's deep waters there. But this technology is being commercialized in other parts of the world, and we think Japan has a real chance to join that as well. But if you think about the potential, the gap between the 30 gigawatts that Japan has, 30 to 45 gigawatts that Japan has announced, and the potentials of 500 and 450, and then also keep in mind this 90% dependency on import of energy from abroad, then you can see this should be a nice solution lying just in front of you by unlocking this potential, which is offshore.
Yeah, thanks, and very thank you for your very detailed sharing. And finally, what are your expectations for the Japan Wind Energy 2023? And in your view, how does such an event hold a significance in advancing industry deployment and strengthening international partnerships in the renewable energy sector?
For countries and people like me who really support the transition to carbon neutrality, the continuous focus on the different options that can lead to that is necessary. And of course, conferences like the one we are participating in here today are doing that, keeping focus on the potential and having discussions about how to actually realize these potentials. So I think it's extremely important that we continue to have discussions where private stakeholders, government representatives, but hopefully also decision makers from the Japanese side will participate and understand a little bit better how can we actually use this potential. I think conferences like the one we are at today is really doing that. And of course, it's also an opportunity for all different kinds of stakeholders, industry, governments and so forth, governments and so forth, to discuss, share experiences, and discuss on ways forward. So I think it's really something very useful and something we need to have every year.
Thank you, Ambassador Peter, for sharing your valuable insights today. It has been a pleasure having you and discussing these vital topics surrounding the wind energy collaboration between Japan and Denmark. Thank you. And your expertise and perspective have shed a light on the promoting future of renewable energy. We greatly appreciate your time and contributes to the conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome.